Hello and welcome to the UK and Ireland Minnesota Vikings Fan Club podcast. I am your host for the day, Tom Parry Jones, and I'm joined by, I always want to say a room filled with heroes, but that's another podcast. But today I'm joined by Club Vice President and all-round nice guy, Mr. John McDonald, and Club right-hand man, just General Consigliere, Darren Hales. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
So it's just us today. Rich is stranded in the Emerald Isle, and Reece has been struck down by the lurgy.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Yeah. And we indeed, and we couldn't get a fourth person in time, but they may join us before the podcast end. Who knows? In the meantime, we have a second preseason game to cover and a third to look forward to, plus all of the action from training camp over the last few days. The joint practice with the Patriots leading into the game that happened on Saturday, and then we have a game against the Tennessee Titans coming up on Friday night, Saturday morning. Let's get into it, shall we?
Ooh, let's do it.
So I think the logical place to start would be with training camp. Obviously, that was the chronological first thing that happened. Any of you guys actually follow the action of training camp?
I was on holiday last week, so my ability to do as much social media trawling was slightly limited compared to normal. But I saw a few bits and pieces.
Tell us about the bits and pieces.
Well, so I what was it I saw? So it looks like it continued to show the building relationship in the absence of Justin Jefferson, the chemistry that's building between Addison and JJ McCarthy. That seems to be kicking up and showing that it's building. And I think the other thing that I saw, was that was it Donovan Jackson? I think was got a little bit got a good block in for a nice screen pass to Aaron Jones. I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. But
yeah, he rumbled, didn't he? I think I saw that clip. But he was clearing DBs out of the way like nobody's business, which is always a mismatch.
I watched those videos and I watched the highlights, and although it was great, is it just me? But it looks like everyone's running at half speed. It looks like it doesn't look like it's full. It does look like it's, and admittedly, it's big offensive linemen running. So, but it just took people
like those guys are
development.
Those guys are deceptively fast. You look at the 40-yard dash times that some of them put up in the combine, and some of them are absolutely rapid. And I hesitate to say exactly how fast Donovan Jackson is, but I'm sure he's no slower than 5 point something over 40 yards.
Yeah, it just I think it just, to me, to my eyes, it just looked like everything was going.
It's probably the wide angles. The wider the angle you see, although having watched a lot of car dash cam footage recently, I'm told that the wider the angle, the faster the car looks like it's going. So who knows? I have no idea. John, any thoughts from you on how training camp's been going and the joint practice last week?
Yeah, the joint practice. I mean, obviously, I've seen a few highlights. I mean, obviously the Donovan Jackson one I was very pleased with, because I was singing his praises the other day there, saying he does need to get a bit more into it and get more and up to NFL speed. And there was a great pass, I'm pretty sure most you would have seen, from JJ McCarthy to Aaron Jones. A long ball down the line that you probably both seen, that was going around on clips. That was pretty much bang on. It was a great look. Yeah,
it is definitely good to see the chemistry developing between the first year starter in JJ McCarthy and the guys who are essentially the face of our franchise. The well, obviously not Justin Jefferson yet, but Addison and the likes of the other offensive weapons that McCarthy has at his disposal coming up in this season.
But we done so well against the Patriots that their coach kept their first string in for longer than he was planning to in our preseason game against them. He was like, these guys embarrassed you so much in the joint practices. You guys are staying out there for
presumably their first team defense.
Yeah, their first team defense, and they played They played May out there for 3 drives, was it? 2 drives, yeah.
But yeah, like you say, Vrabel was definitely not happy with what he saw from the joint practices. So yeah, like you say, he's certainly on both sides of the coin, both defense and offense. He wanted to get his starters out for a few snaps, which made the game interesting, which we'll come into. But obviously, it's something to bear in mind when we're assessing the game itself, I think.
Yeah. I think I guess the focus has mostly been on how the offense is gelling. We've said how JJ McCarthy's looking. The backup quarterback's looking less promising, I would say, wouldn't you?
I mean, obviously, it's hard to know from training. So there's nothing really that's come out that I've seen other than a few reports. But I know, John, you will have done a lot more reading and watching than I have this week or this past week. But obviously, when we start talking about the game, yeah, I agree. There's definitely some conversations that will be had. Some I'm sure we'll agree on. Some of us might have slightly different opinions on, but yeah, it's there's definitely conversation around the quarterback scenario beyond JJ.
Yeah, absolutely,
definitely.
Well, shall we get into the game then? Obviously, that was the showpiece of the week. You know, you go up against these opposition players all week in practice, and it's supposed to be fairly competitive. But obviously, nothing can really take the place of a real game scenario. Any thoughts before we reveal the result? Any initial thoughts about how the game went? I'll start with you, John.
Yeah, as we alluded to a bit earlier, this was the Patriots' first against a lot of the Vikings' seconds, maybe thirds even, for a lot of that first half. So let's not go OTT on criticising Vikings for a lot of this game, but it definitely showed that those guys need to step up the seconds if they do want to move up the first team. This is the speed they've got to be playing at.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Darren, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, I agree, and certainly our seconds were playing against their firsts, our thirds were playing against their seconds. So it was only really until you maybe got to halfway through the third quarter that it looked like, you know, things were leveling out where the Patriots were finally starting to put out their third string players and fourth strings like we were. But I agree. What John was saying is that, you know, certainly those seconds around the offense, you know, they need to step in. They will be getting game time in theory against the caliber of the Patriots first and better. So yeah, there's still some interesting performances from certain people, but you know, there are other people that stepped up. So which we'll come on to, but overall. Yeah, that was obviously the scene. The interesting thing was who wasn't playing. So from the, you know, one assumes that, you know, we were resting our starters, and there was a few names that didn't start that you think, okay. So for example, Jeff Okudah not playing a snap kind of for me really cements that he is certainly at the moment seen as the third starter alongside Byron Murphy and Isaiah Rodgers. Is it Isaiah? Or yeah,
Yeah.
So that was an interesting omission, if you like. And obviously, I don't think Dallas Turner played either, which I was surprised by, given his performance against the Texans. But again, he's probably recognised as a starting backup, if that is a term.
The first change.
Yeah. So yeah. But I thought he might get a few snaps, which didn't happen.
No, he did miss out the entire game. I suppose we should probably say what the result was. Unfortunately, the Vikings lost 20 points to 12. But as you say, it was mostly Vikings seconds against Patriots firsts for most of the first quarter, at least, if not even most of the first half. And they rather put us behind the 8 ball by scoring 2 touchdowns almost back to back.
John, your thoughts?
I'm not going to lie, I didn't see that part because I was getting home from my cycle ride at that point. I only caught the. To
be fair, that is way more important right now.
I was going to say.
I only caught the second half, so I caught a tiny bit of the second quarter, but then it was pretty much the second half. Minutes of the court.
Yeah. So obviously we saw some ex-Vikings on the Patriots roster. Even a quarterback by the name of Joshua Dobbs came in and threw a touchdown pass with very little time left in the second quarter. So we were, if not for a Will Reichert 34-yarder, we would have been 14-0 down at halftime. But again, I think we have to emphasize it's not really about the score lines as much as it is about the individual performances and how the coaching staff can evaluate the players who play and whether or not they'll make the final 53.
Indeed, yeah. I really didn't care about the score. I never do. Preseasons, it's pointless. I know some people do, and that's fine. I respect that, but I don't lose any sleep. It'll be in 2 weeks' time when the Vikings scoreline starts to ruin my week. So I'm just going to enjoy. I enjoy preseason without that pressure of.
Yeah, it was I mean that was honestly one of the highlights of this game. That last drive Brosma made down to try and tie up the game. It was silly things during that drive that really held it back. Penalties and stupid stuff that held it back. But it shows that the team's got a good togetherness and we're ready for the season. I think it's because we didn't see any firsts out there, really, did we? We didn't. You can't really analyze where the firsts are at mentally and everything like that. But yeah, it seems like we're all getting up to speed quite well.
Yeah, I mean, I was slightly distracted by a seagull outside, so I didn't quite catch the question.
Anyone would think you live on the south coast.
I know. Yeah, they're bloody annoying. Hide your chips. So.
Hide your chips, hide your wife.
I was gonna, but I resisted, and then you had to go there anyway. But what was I? So in terms of obviously getting to the final drive. I mean, overall, I thought in terms of where we're at, mostly I'm comfortable. I think our depth in certain areas is starting to show that it might be creaking a little bit, and the obvious one there is obviously around QB, which I'm sure we'll get into shortly in a much more detail. but I think there are other areas that I think after the Texans game, there was lots of sort of, like I was going back. I keep going back to my 53 prediction and going, okay, where does that sit, and do I still feel comfortable? And but I thought this week muddied the picture a little bit for certain bubble areas. So. Around the defensive line and so forth. Obviously, with LDR being unable to play due to an injury, that opened the door for some players to come in and start showing what they can do, which then, and I had LDR on the bubble anyway.
Taki Taimani came in, didn't he, for this game? Like, he played a significant number of snaps, I think, more than he might have been expected to had LDR been fit. How did you feel he played?
So I thought I've always liked Taki. He's always played well when he's come in. So I thought he played well. But I kind of
did his performance affect how you feel he's projected for the 53?
So I kind of had Taki in there as well. So the question is, and this is where Reece and I got into a debate whether or not maybe I was one too short on a lineman. And I, he's not here, so he can't gloat. But I kind of
say whatever you like.
In hindsight, I think he's probably right. So I do tweak my 53 man just after each of the games just to see where I'm landing. But in terms of other sort of players, there was Elijah Williams came in and played quite a few snaps as well, and was he an undrafted free agent? I think he was. So I think he's kind of put himself in the mix a little bit as well. And although LDR has the history, I think it was it Zimmer that once said, if it doesn't matter whether I can't pick you on history, and even if it's an injury and you're not playing, if I can't see you, then it holds you back. So having injuries at this pace when you're in that bubble mix is not great for you as a player, because you're not able to demonstrate what you can do. And if other players around you start to play and elevate themselves, then reputation only gets you so far at that level of the squad.
There's always that old adage, where it's not what you've done, it's what have you done for me lately.
Yeah, exactly. So I think those sorts of players have made interesting elevations for their game and to give themselves. But obviously, QB is where things that maybe we should dive into.
Let's get into who are standout players and our letdowns of the game were. I'll start with you, John. Who was your standout player of the game? Who really stood out for you in Vikings Patriots?
Oh well, again you've got again. He really showed up quite well again. I think he's pretty much. I would personally put him as the third right now. I would say Chandler's had more than enough chances, and I would put Scott as our third running back right now.
See, I remain unconvinced about Scott. He did look very good against the Texans, but against the Patriots, he only managed 28 yards on 10 carries with a long of 6. And I can't say that I watched the whole game, fervently, but that stat line doesn't really stand out to me as a guy who is necessarily worthy of that RB3 spot.
Yeah, I think it's got to be compared against Chandler. I mean, Chandler did have a reasonable a reasonable run. There was one. Chandler took the first running play and got about 6-7 yards. It looked reasonable.
I think it must have been 5 because his long was 5. He managed 12 yards on 3 carries. But it was those two between them. They shared all of the running. Exactly. Sam Howell had a couple of scrambles. They must have been. I don't think they were designed runs for Sam Howell because he managed 3 for 14.
No, we'll come on to Sam Howell in a minute, I'm sure. But,
I'm sure we will. Well, in that case, Darren,
I thought the eyeball test on Scott was so. I agree with John. I have moved Scott into my number 3, and I've now got Chandler being cut based on mine because I think. Although I think we will keep a running back on the practice squad, I think it will be RB TBC to see who else gets released on practice and look to pick up rather than Chandler. But maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on Chandler. In terms of my...
Well, I was just going to say that I think Scott obviously has the benefit of being a lot cheaper than Chandler.
Yeah, and Chandler's not that expensive to get rid of. I think it's like 700,000 dead money if they cut him. So it's
a saving of about 1.5 million or something, or maybe a million. John, what were you going to say?
And got a lot better at the screen game as well because he got 44 yards receiving during that.
But he started out as a wide receiver, didn't he? And then converted to a running back. So
yes.
So one assumes he's got some level of hands, although not great hands if he had to convert to a running back. If he had great hands, he'd still be a wide receiver.
I think a lot of running backs are converting to this sort of the style, but he's what you might call a scat back.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of those who you can use more in the passing game.
Yeah.
In that case, Darren, who was your standout player from the weekend's game?
I'm going to be honest. It was slim pickings compared to. I would have much preferred not being.
He didn't play.
Slim pickings. Is that like the will reveal that John was talking about earlier on? But I'm going to stay on offense. I think Miles Price has really stepped up and stood out in that game. Obviously, on the punt and kicking returns, with Rondale Moore obviously going down, that has opened up. What was this? Was it Silas Bolden? I think was the other wide receiver that we were all raving about that came in as a punt returns, kick return specialist, and he's fallen off a cliff. So he's got his chance and he's taken it with literally with both hands. Needs to work on his finishing. No one likes getting caught at the 5-yard line when you've run that long, but
Well, quite. It was an 81-yard return on that kickoff, which incredible. I don't think we've seen that from a Vikings kick returner since the dynamic kickoff came into the league. What do you think, John? How do you feel about Miles Price?
Yeah, he was good, but I'm not sure KOC's a big fan of him, especially after him swearing at him on the sideline for giving away that penalty, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was Price that made that penalty. That was quite funny. Hearing KOC drop the F-bomb on live TV.
Yeah. Yes. That was.
I mean, Price.
Actually, but I think Price is not a wide receiver 3-4. He's purely if he makes the squad, which I think he has a chance of, it'll be we need a punt returner or and possibly even a kick returner. I think the kick returner is going to be sort of a toss up between Ty Felton and Miles Price, I think, at the moment. But in terms of punt returner, I don't see any competition for. Admittedly, a small sample size, but if he can play like that on punt return, shows intelligence in when to catch and when to leave it, and can make the first man miss and find some channels, I think he'll do well. Just
do you see much?
Won't be on the offensive start, I don't think.
Fair. Do you see much promise in Ty Felton so far in the offensive game? At the moment, he looks more like a return guy. But do you really draft a guy in the third round if you're only going to use him in the return game?
Yeah, well, so this was going back to when I wasn't so thrilled about the pick. That was my justification. Is that
we're nothing if not repetitive on this show?
Yeah. So, but he showed some good because I think there was that catch that he made that he kind of bent over really got up over the guy, the defensive cornerback. It bounced off his helmet and then flew up in the air, and he still managed to adjust himself on the sideline, bring it down, and tap his toes. So I'm pretty certain that was Felton that did that. And there was a couple of other moments, but not enough. But again, it's I think he's still in and around that sort of 3-4, especially with, again, not wishing to potentially nick other people's, but obviously Lucky Jackson has been the darling for the last few weeks, but he's starting to show that he's been dropping a lot recently. So I think his stock is going down. So I think Felton, still is in that mix there of. I think he certainly makes the squad, but I think he's probably
I would say so,
fifth in the order.
I guess then we'll move on to our disappointments from Saturday.
Who was your pick?
My standout player.
Your standout, yeah.
God knows. I mean, Brosma stands out.
Could we get him on the podcast?
I'll tell you who actually stood out for me is Oscar Chapman. I think he's
Chapman with the banana ball.
They loved that, talking about the banana ball, didn't they?
No, it did make me chuckle when because Paul Allen just referred to everything as the banana ball, and I can't remember, it's the other commentator.
Ben Lieber's like, I think it's just one kind of kick that's the banana
he does
ball.
It sometimes. Not every kick is a banana ball.
Yeah, but not only was his kicking good, I mean, he had an average of, I think, 52.5 on punts, on 2 punts, because he did share some duties with Ryan Wright on the weekend. But I also was impressed with his holding, which for a guy who's come into the game as he's fairly new to the game from Australia, didn't grow up playing American football. For him to be able to come in and get the holding technique down, I'm pretty impressed with how he's done that. I don't know if he'll make the final roster. I think we'll probably stick with Ryan Wright, only because it's free to hold
keep him on
Chapman on the practice squad. Yeah, because he's international
as well.
No,
I don't think so. No, I don't think that's how it works.
A few weeks ago, it's only 53
sure
man,
it goes up to 54.
No, it goes from 16 to 17 on the practice squad.
Yeah, if they're promoted to the active roster, then their international status is essentially nixed in perpetuity. But like I say, he shows promise, and I could see him absolutely being kept on the 53. But I think he's more of a long-term project, as most of these IPPP guys are. Try saying that 3 times fast. But yeah, those are our standout players. Let's move on to the disappointments from the weekend. The fun bit. The bit that really tells you how the preseason is going. John, let's come to you first. Who was your stig of the dump?
I mean,
was that maybe a little harsh?
As I said, I didn't really watch the first half, but I'm just looking at the stats here. Sam Howell, just from stat wise, I'm not. I honestly didn't see it, but he didn't. I mean, I've been singing his praises when we brought him in, but yeah, not looking good as QB2. I know a lot of fans are out there are saying, "Oh, Brosman's done enough to get QB2." I'm not. No, he's not, and I will not hear that Brosman has done enough to get QB2. he didn't play at an elite level at college, really, until his last year. Maybe he was at semi-elite, but yeah, I'm not having it heard that Brosma has moved up to 2. He's fighting for 3, and he's made a good case for 3. But Sam Howell was my thinker of the week.
Yeah,
I
he
agree.
was quite abysmal, wasn't he? 1 of 5 for a QB rating of 0.0.
Had a QB rating of 0.
It's
If I
atrocious.
played it every snap and just threw every ball out of field, I'd get a QB rating of 5. So he did worse than that.
That is pretty bad because he threw a pick. Like one of those 4 incompletions was a pick.
It was just the most infuriating pick as well. It was just an absolute heave it up. It was very akin to the one that I think it was Kirk Cousins did it when he was falling on his back. No, it wasn't. It was Mullins, wasn't it? I think when Mullins was sort of falling backwards and just lobbed it almost past it. I mean, it was slightly better than
Heart
that.
attack, Nick Mullins.
But he just airmailed it up and just left it. It was just.
It's one of those just lame duck interceptions you don't want to see any quarterback throw. Was it as a result of pressure?
Oh yeah, he was definitely under pressure. I mean, he ran into pressure a little bit. I think his pocket awareness showed that it was a little bit weak. But he came round, and I think it was a play. I'd have to go back and watch it, but I think it was a
play action, was it?
A play action or an RPO maybe. So he's turning away, and then he sort of just runs into traffic, and rather than just take the hit and live to fight another day, he lifted it up.
Very disappointing. Darren, who was your Oh, sorry, John. You had more to say on Sam Howell?
No.
All right, we'll move on then. Darren, who was your stinker of the week?
My stinker of the week. I'm going to be unpopular here. Yeah, you can hear them now, can't you? I might have to shut my back door in a minute, but it's muggy warm.
It's quite nice today.
So, yeah, it might be an unpopular opinion, but and unlike Howell, I'm bigging this up and setting my context here. Unlike Howell, who had a howler, I don't think this was a disaster, but just in terms of my expectation, and that is Mekhi Blackman.
I think you stole mine.
He still doesn't look game ready. Most of the catches were with him in coverage, and although they weren't, it wasn't awful coverage. It was just a little like a step off in a lot of it. It was the one that I went back on to the zone in my lunch hour this morning just to go onto the coach film, the All 22, just to watch a few plays of him, because like all of us, I think we want him to do well because we have a connection with him here in the UK. But yeah, I can't let that sort of muddy my view too much. And I think with the combination, he's got some work to do. Again, like I said the other week, I don't think it's a disaster. I think he's just not. He's going to be a backup for a little bit, I think, until he can get himself up to speed.
It's difficult when you've had an entire year out of the sport and you're sort of thrust back into it, and you have to make a showing because this Vikings secondary is pretty. Well, it's the weakest group, but like position grouping that we have on either offense or defense, I would say. John, come to the defense of your favorite Viking, Mekhi Blackman, please, if you can.
I'm gonna be honest. I agree with Darren. I love Mekhi Blackman. He's brilliant, but as Darren says, he's not really criticizing him. He's saying he's just not up to game day speed. He's just missing that edge. When you've got to remember that he got injured in the first practice of preseason last year. It's been a long time since he's been up to proper game day speed, but he does need to step up his game, because if he's not getting into this secondary, as we say, is clearly the weak point of this team at the moment. You've got to start questioning what's going on with this.
You have a bit. We will know more after the third preseason game, and hopefully even more after Monday Night Football against the Chicago Bears in Week 1. Before we move on to talking about that third preseason game, I will give you my disappointment of the week, and I'm actually going to go with Miles Price, which it's odd when we've just said he's John's like standout player.
It was my standout player.
Sorry, Darren, your standout player. He was a standout player for one of you guys with beards. But I think when you look at the illegal shift penalty, it's the little things that are going to get you cut from a roster like any NFL roster. If you can't, remember when you're supposed to be moving and when you're not supposed to be, it's going to be very difficult to keep you around on the team, even with an 81-yard kickoff return. I was going to say maybe Jayshon Jones as well, because I'm not overly convinced by his hands, but I think that just says a lot about the way our wide receiver core is at the minute. Like little to no depth outside of Addison and Jefferson. I could even say that with those two aside, wide receiver is possibly our second worst position group in the entire team.
Yeah, I mean, I get the. Obviously, I've got to defend him because he was my standout. But I agree.
Was it yours or was it John's?
No, it was definitely my standout. So the Miles Price was definitely mine.
Yeah.
But I think I agree with you in the sense that little mistakes like that. But he was never going to be, up until a week ago, he was like 7th or 8th or 9th in my depth chart at wide receiver. He wasn't even a consideration.
Yeah, so we didn't really expect much of him, I suppose.
So him making mistakes as a wide receiver is, to me, is a kind of an obvious thing. That's not what he's there for, but he is showing that he can add something in special teams. And if you can show something in special teams and get onto that for that purpose and play a role, quite an important role to the team, that buys you time to then build on your wide receiver. So
we always come back to Adam Thielen as being a standout on special teams before turning into a superstar wide receiver.
And it's kind of it's a proving ground for those. But you've got to show you can do it. It's a way of getting onto the squad if you're not quite there to be on the offense. Or the defense in some cases, but you can ball out on the special teams. Then that helps, gives you an option. Whereas and to go back to my conversation with Reece a few weeks ago about Brian Asamoah, where the argument there was, well, but he's a beast on special teams. It's like, yeah, there's a limit to how long you can only be a special teamer before you can start showing. And obviously, I'm going to gloat a little bit. Shame that Reece. I think that's why Reece has lost his voice, because he thought I might bring this up, so he's running scared. But obviously, he got.
We'll talk about Brian Asamoah in a minute.
Yeah, we will, because in
that case, I think you. I guess I take it back. Then you can mostly put You can mostly put things.
I'm not asking you to change your.
I think you're right though, because you raise a completely valid point in that I think those sorts of mistakes are mostly down to coaching rather than the actual player himself, especially when you consider that he, as you say, he was probably 7th or 8th wide receiver on the roster. So Jayshon Jones, my stinker of the week.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Lucky Jackson made a few drops as well, so he could have been a
I liked seeing Tim Jones getting some targets as well. I thought he played pretty well out of the wide receivers, but still, like I say, a pretty weak, lacking depth wide receiver core, not what we're used to seeing from the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, so I assume before we move...
Was it Jayshon Jones that missed that catch from Brosma that KOC tore into him whilst he was on the mic?
I think it was, yeah.
You got to get that. You got to get that. I mean, it was a bit overthrown by Brosma, but KOC,
which is
like,
kind of to be expected from a inexperienced QB. Yeah, sorry, Karen.
He was like, you still got to get that. You got to get your head around and get that. And if to come to the defense of Brosma, I would rather it be overthrown than underthrown. I would always rather the QB overthrow stuff than underthrow stuff because let's face it, if you overthrow stuff, it's unlikely to be picked off.
Yeah, there are two ways you can miss your wide receiver. Well, two main ways: overthrowing and underthrowing. And overthrowing is likely going to be the one that takes it away from the defender. Let's move on then to the final preseason game. Or well, before we do that, let's actually talk about Brian Asamoah because he was obviously cut from the Vikings team in the lead up to the Patriots game. Where's he ended up?
The day after he got picked up on waivers by the Tennessee Titans,
who we happen to be playing this coming weekend.
Indeed.
Well, I say the weekend. Up. Well, yeah. So you had him being cut, I believe, from the final 53.
Well, when I did my predictions, to be fair, I only did my 53 prediction. I didn't go into who might make the practice squad and who might not. But I do recall. Yeah, I mean, I had him being cut. I didn't see him. It didn't strike me as a practice squad player because I don't think he would have made it onto the practice squad anyway. He's too good to be too good to be not picked up by some team. He's just not good enough for the Vikings starting linebackers. So I'm still batting 100 at the minute. No one's for now. No one's been cut that I said was going to be my 53.
Not yet. I mean, we have. I think when a final cuts, I believe it's like late evening our time on next Tuesday.
I think so. Yeah, that's my understanding.
26th. Is that I'm pretty sure it's like 3 or 4 in the afternoon US time.
Yeah, that's normally when it happens. Yeah.
Get it in the news cycle.
Where you wake up in the morning and go, "What?
They cut him.
He was my camp.
He was my camp sweetheart. He was terrible. Oh dear. Well, in that case, we can then talk about facing Brian Asamoah and the Tennessee Titans down in Nashville this coming Friday. It is actually a Friday game, even though UK time it will be 1:00 in the morning on Saturday. Are we looking forward to it?
As much as I look forward to any third game of the preseason, because it's generally the bubble players playing. So yeah. Am I right to say that we've got another joint practice?
No,
I don't think so.
We had two joint practices this year.
We did try to have negotiate a joint practice with them, but it didn't work out in the end.
Oh, okay, right. So, okay, so it's just a standard build-up practice, and then we fly up to Nashville. But yeah, it.
Yeah, Mike Broadhead did try and sort it out for us, but he couldn't quite get it there.
No, fair enough. So it's just the game then that we really care about.
Well, and obviously the practices that lead up to it.
It's all information, isn't it? That's the key thing. So it's about what we want, what we're looking out for in terms of those bubble players. Obviously, the first team players are not going to play. I would argue that a lot of the second teamers are probably not going to play either. I wonder whether Addison might play, given that
I think he will.
Yeah.
So
tell us about that, John.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. I was sitting here ready. I was like, I wonder if Addison's gonna what they're gonna say.
Good to know we're all on the same sort of wavelength anyway.
Yeah, I think Addison will definitely play what I'd say 2 or 3 drives, depending on how long the drives are and everything like that. But
I'd give him a full half.
Yeah, depending on the positioning of depending on how we're looking and everything like that. We'll see how it works out. But yeah, Addison will be probably about the only first team offense player playing. Really, I think it'd be nice to see him out there with Brosma and Rippin. I see Brosma taking the first lot of snaps and Rippin going down to the maybe playing the second half and everything like that. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, because obviously Addison's out for the first 3 games of the season, we need to get him up to game day speed and keep him fresh.
Yeah, I believe he has to miss a couple of weeks of practice during his suspension as well.
My understanding is that he has to be out of the building for 1 week, and then he can come back for practice for the other 2 before he can.
Is that week specified, or do we?
I don't know.
I assume it would be the first week.
That's my presumption, but I don't know for sure whether it's prescribed that or whether there's just one of those 3 weeks that you.
Yeah, it would be a bit harsh of the NFL to say, it has to be the last one. The week before he wants to play again. But it means that he's back.
He has to be out the first week, and then they have 2 weeks run up. But like you, John, I think he'll get out there. I don't know. It'll just be to get some run into his legs. I don't know that you, as from Addison's perspective, I don't know how much you get from ripping and or Brosma throwing to you, and you running against thirds and fourth cornerbacks.
If he hasn't scored a hat trick by half time, I'll be disappointed.
Exactly. Other than to have a bit of fun, I'm not sure.
Which almost is the wrong attitude to go into it with. Like, you want him to be like. I'm pretty sure you were just joking, but you do want him to be taking it as seriously as possible.
I'm sure he will take it seriously.
More seriously than he took his DUI.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Well, okay, so we've got the game coming up on Saturday morning, 1 a.m. It'll be available live to watch on DAZN if anyone fancies staying up until 4 a.m. I won't.
I might watch it Saturday morning. On the
before I've got some work to do on Saturday. I might watch it before I head off to whatever it is I've got to do on Saturday. But when we do watch it, I'll start with Darren this time. Darren, whom will be the player that you are most fixated on during Saturday morning's game against the Tennessee Titans?
Well, other than Brian Asamoah, to make sure that he doesn't make me look stupid. In terms of ours, it's just who's going to be playing, isn't it? So I think I'm still interested to. I haven't really focused in. So this is more just because I haven't focused in on, rather than because I think that they've done badly or well up until now. But I'm going to be checking out the sort of second and third string tight ends, because I know obviously Bartholomew's out on PUP or IR with his back. So I want to look a bit more into Jurasek. They've been a bit quiet, and Nesbitt's sort of, I think it was Nesbitt. Was it Nesbitt that fell on what should, in my humble opinion, have been a fumble touchdown?
I think it was Nesbitt.
Yeah,
and it should have been a touchdown.
But I'd like to just have a look at those. Vanette obviously came in very recently and showed up, but I think he's just in there. I'll be honest, I think he's just in there as a veteran training. I don't see him sticking around for long. But he might be able to fight his way in, but I think he's there more just as a veteran head during training and giving him some game time. But yeah, again, ultimately, I think Reece mentioned it the other week, it's as much about who's not playing. It'll be interesting to see, for example, whether Blackman is still put out there for a bit, or whether they have seen enough in training to go, okay, well, we'll sit you out and give some other people, because that cornerback room, as we initially thought, still looks shallow.
A little ropey.
Yeah.
And Blackman has played a lot of the first 2 games. I think they probably have seen enough of him.
I suspect he will not play, but if he is in there, I see
it
that
means
as
his roster spot is questionable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to reiterate, who's your man you're watching?
I'm going to go with Jurasek, Ben Jurasek.
Okay. John, then, who are you focused on this coming weekend?
I'm going to go with Price or Joshua Jones. Looking at the wide receivers is what I'm going to be doing. The backup wide receivers, seeing how they're faring, because as we said, that's apart from the secondary, that's really where we're a bit lax. We need to kind of improve. Kind of a week after you get past the first two, it's kind of a bit of a weak area. I mean, I know Naylor picked up an injury. I don't know if there's been any more news on that, because he picked up a hand injury recently.
He's jammed his hand was, I think, the term that was used. So I don't know what that really means.
So if he's not playing weeks 1, 2, and 3, we're looking at desperately scrambling for a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, so that's where you're hoping Ty Felton stands up, but I don't think Ty Felton will play
I don't
on
think
Friday. I think he'll be sat, especially with I depending on what's happened to Naylor. I don't know whether this is it's just a tweak scenario. And then he's out for,
the Vikings are being very cryptic about it.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if he's a candidate to go on early IR. Which means he has to be on the 53, but then they put him on IR and then they'll elevate someone straight after. But we'll see. I might be being paranoid there. But like you say, I agree. Obviously, Lucky Jackson's been a bit dropsy. Deshaun Jones hasn't really shown much. So it might be a run out to see what we're getting out of people like Dante Fleming and Robert Lewis, to see whether there's any diamonds in the rough there as well. Because otherwise, I think we have to. We'll be looking at waivers to see if we can pick up some extra hands.
Fair enough. My player to watch this coming weekend. Oh gosh, it's difficult to say because there's. I think you guys have covered it pretty well. I mean, maybe someone on in the linebacking core, maybe the likes of Kobe King, or if he even plays, Chaz Chambliss, like just someone who's on the bubble. They haven't really stood out for me in the first 2 games, the amount they've played. Otherwise, maybe I would go with a wide receiver like Tim Jones. Like I say, I said earlier, he played fairly well against the Patriots. Maybe this is his chance to stake a claim to a more prominent role come the regular season.
Yeah, that seems sensible. I think, yeah.
Dwight McGlothern as well. I'd fallen off a little bit among that.
He had a weird game. He did some really good things and then did some really awful things. It was he had
one of those loaf plays like Price did with the illegal shift. He had the play on the punt where he stepped out of bounds for no apparent reason. Or I think he was boxed out, but it was one of those where you can't run out of bounds and then touch the ball without reestablishing blah blah blah.
That whole third quarter watching KOC completely melt down, but trying to keep it together.
It was a real knowing he was on camera on mic. Like, he still didn't stop him dropping a F-bomb or 2, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was 2. One was more prominent than the other one, but
I find it so weird that no mention was made of it in the broadcast. It wasn't a case of we apologize for any foul language that you may have heard in the broadcast, and you would have to do that in the UK. Ofcom would be on your ass if you didn't. But in the US, I think they just pretend it didn't happen because they'll bleep it out in rebroadcasts, as they have done. I've seen the official rebroadcast of that, and No F-bombs to be heard anywhere. Just silence.
It makes it a bit realer for me. I like it. It shows passion. It shows that he cares.
It's one of the things I really like about NFL preseason is the treats you get with, we had Justin Jefferson on the mic in week 1 of preseason. We had Grenard and KOC doing the weekend just gone. Obviously, we won't see that in the third game because it's a Titans home game. But I do wonder who they would have roped in to get on the mic for commentary. Who would you have as a Vikings commentator, John? Out of the current team,
I would like Jones, Aaron Jones. I reckon he'd have a great insight on, and he knows his stuff, and he's really passionate. So I'd love to.
He wouldn't be able to stop himself skull chanting.
No.
Darren, who do you think?
Who do I think?
Just as a little aside to finish the show with.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Brian O'Neill. I like Brian O'Neill, and he's quite either that or one of the 2 male cheerleaders. That'd be interesting.
God, an absolute meltdown on social media this week over
it's ridiculous.
The Vikings having male cheerleaders. Like, guys, get a life.
It's not even like we're the first to do it.
No, apparently there's 10 NFL teams that either currently or previously had male cheerleaders.
I know.
It's a regular thing in college. Get a life.
I know, exactly.
So we've talked about our backup QB situation. Where would you guys go for if these guys don't work out?
So it's really if Sam Howell doesn't work out, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
Who are you looking at? Yeah, who are you looking at too? Yeah.
So
I mean, I would. My pick would be looking at.
Well, this is your will reveal, isn't it? This is.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think that's the reason Big Deal Rich isn't here. He's out there trying to get a job.
He's not really. He's not really in Ireland.
He's not really in Ireland.
He's showing his cannon for an arm. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
He's out there.
That's got to be what it is.
But in all seriousness, I reckon Jameis Winston, I reckon we can pick him up from the Giants quite happily.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, this is where, again, no one's going to like me saying this. No one wants to hear it. But if Sam Howell is not, the most obvious selection is to get someone that has been in the building for a long time already, knows the system, knows how KOC works, and knows how to hold a clipboard. And that
certainly in recent months,
and that's bringing Mullins back in. If you want a bona fide QB2 that is just basically there to come in for a couple of snaps, hopefully, and be an ear and a support to JJ. I can see that happening. We've got no real ties to Howell. It wasn't a trade of a fifth. It was a 5th round swap, so it's not like we've lost much. So there's
but they really went
tie.
hard to get him. Like they did. It was just a 5th rounder, but they sort of identified this guy as like he's the guy we want to back up JJ coming into this season. But
yeah, absolutely. But if they're not cutting
wrong call.
You're also not you're not tethered to it. It's not a chain around your neck.
I'll be honest. I was quite excited seeing Sam Howell come in because I thought, if KOC and Kwesi want him, obviously there's something to him. Free agents are still available. Carson Wentz, CJ Beathard, not really lighting anyone's fire. Not rustling your jimmies.
No. And again, if it's a QB2 just to sit on the bench, I don't necessarily have too much of a problem going out and bringing back Mullins. If, God forbid, touch all wood that this doesn't happen, but if JJ goes down for a period of time, that's when we'll be doing a Dobbs kind of scenario, and we'll have to go to the market, and because I don't think Sam Howell is up to a long-term stint. Mullins wouldn't be either.
It may all depend on who gets cut in just over a week. Well,
Yeah,
it'll be
exactly.
under a week
The
by the time this
market
goes out.
may change. Exactly.
I'd love to see Teddy Bridgewater come back.
What's he
I don't
doing
see
now?
him. Well, I don't see him staying as QB2 at the Bucks.
Oh, that's where he is, isn't it? Yeah.
Like he's not going to be QB2 at the Bucks. I would almost be sure of that because they've got Kyle Trask and a guy called Connor Bazelak, who they brought in as an undrafted free agent. So it's going to be Bazelak and Bridgewater going for QB3. It may be that they go, oh, Bridgewater's too expensive just to be a QB3, and he gets cut before the season starts, which opens the door for him to be our QB2. Whether he'd want to, I don't know, but I
don't know. And again, we as fans have these connections, but none of the coaching staff have a real connection to Teddy.
No, but he is a proven guy as a backup in the NFL.
Yeah, when you come into that though, I think you go with who you know. Especially if you're having to make a knee-jerk reaction. I think if you've taken a punt on Howell, for example, and that hasn't worked out, the next question you have is: Do I take another punt again, or do I go better the devil we know kind of scenario? Especially if they're coming in quickly, they're not having any camp, so they're going to need to know the system. So yeah, like I say, no one wants to hear it, but I think that is the most likely scenario.
Bringing back Kirk O'Chains.
No, not Kirk. That's not going to happen.
You don't think? You don't think it's even in the back of anyone's mind? If he presented himself, if he presented it as an option to Kwesi, and Cousins came cheaply,
I'm not sure
in terms of contract and draft capital. Well, that's my point. If it's a big if, but if he did, I don't think Cousins would come to be a backup.
I don't think you would come to. You're coming back to where you were the starter for four or five seasons,
and you'd have to sit under the guy who had to replace you.
You went out of that as you kind of went out of that organization because you weren't getting the longer term commitment, and for then to come back and be the backup after you. I think just a bit of pride might prevent that from happening.
Fair enough.
And also, I don't think you get cheap because the Falcons have already committed all the money that they were going to commit to Cousins. So, and they would know we were desperate. So I think we wouldn't be in the best negotiating position.
We'd be over a barrel.
Yeah.
Right then. Any more news before we wrap things up? John, how's training going for your big bike ride?
Yeah, I've done a couple of cycles this week. It's been
went to the shops and back.
Week, yeah, but yeah.
The return journey is always harder because you got the bags.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, John. I know every time I rib you about it, but yeah. I know you've been doing some pretty significant kilometers over the last couple of weeks. So,
yeah, I have made a little change to my journey that I'm going to be doing. Instead of on my last day, I'm going to be coming from Leighton Buzzard instead, where a fan has very generously decided to put me up for the night. So it's added an extra 10k to my cycle ride, but to see a friendly face after cycling for four days and to be put up by a friend.
What's a few more kilometres between friends?
What's an extra 10k? Yeah.
What's the longest leg that you've got of the journey? I don't mean
his right one.
You've got two legs, but no. What's the longest stretch of the journey?
My longest leg is day 3. I'm 90% sure, and it's about 70k. It's just over 70k. It's 72k. Yeah.
Feeling confident you'll be able to get through that without exploding?
Yeah. Luckily, that's the day I'm pretty much going through straight through Birmingham, central Birmingham. So I'll be able to take a few rests, and I know there'll be places where I can rest up and stop. So that's the day I'm going from Market Drayton to Warwick.
Great.
Yeah. So that's 72.5K.
Goodness me. So to reiterate, John is going to be cycling over 600 kilometres, not all the way from Croke Park to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, because obviously you've got some water in the way, but over land you'll be doing about 600 kilometres, all for the charity Mind. If anyone would like to donate to John's wonderful cause, you can visit justgiving.com/page/the purple pedal. Any donations will be gratefully received and will go to a great cause for mental health. Any more?
I think we are done.
Let's wrap it up then.
I think we smashed it.
Guys, thank you so much for listening today. If you want to get in touch with the podcast, you can find us on all the social media channels. I'm not going to do the list of them. I can't do it justice the way Reece does. But we do have a Beacons page that you can find linked in the description of this podcast. All that remains to be said now, I suppose, is thank you, gentlemen, and say goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
Cheers. Ta-ra.